What Humina and I were waiting for
Yes, that something will definitely happen in summer.
was something that validated our existence.
10 years from now, something really good will happen to us, and we'll finally be able to feel like we're glad to have lived.
Something that made up for everything.
In 10 years, we'll have to get really rich and really famous. So famous, our classmates will have heart attacks from jealousy. And if they don't, it won't be worth it.
About Miss Himeno. Circumstances led her to give birth to a child at 17. She then dropped out of high school and married at 18, but divorced 2 years later, now at 20. She's raising the child by herself. And in 2 years' time, she will be jumping to her death. Are you making 1,000 paper cranes? You intend to do this all by yourself. To what end?
To wish myself a happy life as I head toward death. I enjoyed the pointless work. I filled the drab apartment with paper cranes of many colors. 881, 882, 883. As I went through recounting the cranes, I found many that were too good to believe I made them. These ones must have been folded by a certain nosy individual while I slept. That went way too quickly. The night I finished folding cranes, when checking the pockets of my jeans, I found the letter I'd taken from the time capsule. It went like this. To me, 10 years from now, you're the only one I can count on to do this.
If I'm still on the shelf in 10 years, I want you to meet Himeno, because Himeno's hopeless without me, and I'm hopeless without Himeno.
10 years ago, you were surprisingly honest and kind. So then, what do you intend to do?
Go meet Himeno. This is a request from myself 10 years ago. It's been 10 years now. I want to honor it. Sure, it might just bring me even more pain, but until I see it with my own eyes, I can't give up. Just one last time. I want to talk with her. And as thanks for giving me life, I want to give her the 300,000 yen I got from selling it.
I won't stop you. I can't say I don't understand the feeling myself.
Maybe even tomorrow, I'm thinking of going to Himeno's house. You know if she's at her parents' place?
Indeed. It seems she's been depending on them ever since her husband left.
Don't bring up her name so lightly. I especially don't want to hear it out of your mouth.
Is that so? I'll be more cautious henceforth.
Thanks.
Don't mention it. I must apologize, but I can't let you go too far on your own. An observer and their target must not be separated by any more than 100 meters.
Or else what?
Your lifespan will be terminated. However, this bike does seat 2, does it not?
I guess it can.
Then we will be able to use it, so long as you aren't vehemently opposed to me riding.
No way. It won't bother me.
Pardon me.
First, I'll go to the college campus to get a map. Do you know Miss Himeno's address?
Yeah.
Just once, I did get a letter from Himeno. She wrote about how busy she was with studies and other frivolous things. No hint of sarcasm or an insulting word. I couldn't help but think that it didn't sound like Humina at all. But in the end, I answered with a similarly banal letter. Never got a reply. By that time, Humina was already carrying the child of someone I didn't even know. I can't say it was a very good memory, but Humino's letter did tell me where she was. Now, I could be glad for that. Hey, this isn't really a meaningful question, but if you were in my situation, how would you spend your last months?
I don't think I'd know until I was in that position. I know I told you before, but you shouldn't talk to me in places like this. They'll think you're a strange person who talks to himself.
Let him. I am a strange guy. In fact, I actively wanted to be weird. Better to be remembered as a weirdo than not remembered at all.
I've been thinking about that question you asked. If I myself had only a few months left to live, there are 3 things I would absolutely want to do. The first, to go to a certain lake. The second, to make a grave for myself. And the third, much like what you're doing, to go see a person who was important to me. That's about all.
Not really sure I get it. How about a little more info?
The lake is just a lake, but I do recall from my childhood the view of the stars there being quite beautiful. There are no doubt more beautiful sights in the world. But as far as those I know, that starry lake is the most.
I see. So the grave. You mean you want to buy a good piece of land?
No. Strictly speaking, if I just found a nice large rock and decided, this is my grave, even that would be fine. What's important is that whatever I decide to be my grave remains for at least a couple decades.
And about the person who was important to me.
Well, I'd rather not tell you, Mr. Kusunoki.
Huh. I suppose it's a guy?
You would suppose right. I think, as much as it might hurt me, as much as I might be disappointed, I too would still go to meet them, in the end. And so, I suppose that means I have no right to deny what you're doing, Mr. Kusunoki.
Talk about out of character. A lot more timid when it's about you, huh?
Well, I don't know anything about my own future.
There aren't any other Humina houses around. Guess this must be the one. Maybe somebody will come home at night. Let's waste some time. What kind of books would I get the urge to read when nearing my death? I'd always wondered that. To put it another way, what kind of book could possibly be useful right before death? As it turns out, I chose some not particularly interesting picks. Wanting to try observing and reading at the same time?
Something like that.
It was my first experience, reading a book with someone else. Reading like this, I wasn't just thinking about how I felt, but also how Miyagi felt reading the same part. Having that awareness seemed to make for more enriching reading. She sure does have a calming smell to her, I thought. Still nobody home. Maybe tomorrow.
Are you going to a festival?
The shrine passed it. Wanna drop by? I hadn't seen such a festival in 10 years. Ever since Humina left, I'd stopped going to the local one.
What are you buying all that for?
Dunno. I couldn't tell you myself. There's no way I can eat this all myself, so you'll have to help.
I'll indulge.
Guess going for a full tour was too much. That day, Humina made a premonition. Something really good would happen, and one day, we'd be glad we lived. In the summer 10 years later. Furthermore, she said that if we hadn't found someone to marry after 10 years, being that we were both on the shelf, we should marry each other. Well, right now, I was in that summer. One of us had become used goods, and the other was ending his life unfit to sell. But all told, neither of us had a satisfied customer to our names. Where was Humino now? And what was she doing? I wonder. Some things are too good to be true, so people say. And yet in reality, though people may not notice it themselves in this sort of perverse prankstery way, things do come together. Humina.
Kusunoki?